Imagine spending millions or even billions of dollars on a massive construction project. Years of planning, engineering and labor. All that hard work. But in the end, it all goes horribly wrong. From New York's very own Leaning Tower to a massive dam in Australia that needs to be completely rebuilt from scratch. Hey, I'm Luis, this is MegaBuilds, and here are some of the biggest construction mistakes that recently happened. Take a look at this residential skyscraper in Manhattan. This is the One Seaport skyscraper. When it was first announced, it promised sweeping views of the East River, high-end amenities and luxury apartments. But just before construction topped out in 2018, a new contractor noticed something strange about it. Here's the structure as it is right now. Notice anything weird? Well, it seems pretty normal to me, but why don't we look a little bit closer? It might not be obvious at first, but the tower is actually leaning a few centimeters to the north. A terrifying discovery in one of the most densely populated cities on Earth. But how did it even get to this point in the first place? Manhattan is known far and wide for its towering skyscrapers. And the reason why all of this is even possible has to do with the island's underlying foundation of solid bedrock. When a skyscraper is constructed, deep pilings are drilled underground, and they have to reach this layer which can support the whole structure. But in case of the One Seaport, things were a little different. The land beneath the site actually sits on top of a mixed layer of loose sand, landfill and decomposed marshland. The bedrock crucial for stability is located a solid 50 meters below the ground. Normally, this depth wouldn't have been an issue as it's possible to create skyscrapers in these conditions. I mean, just look at the structures around it. But probably in an effort to save on costs, the developers chose a cheaper shortcut. Rather than drilling all the way down to the bedrock, they instead chose to reinforce the ground by injecting it with concrete. Improving the soil saved as much as $6 million. But it wasn't until later that this decision proved to be a massive mistake. As the actual construction went on, plenty of other building code violations and mistakes plagued the project. One worker even unfortunately fell from a moving platform during construction, which cost him his life. Shortly after this, construction was halted, and the concrete contractor even completely ghosted the project. Eventually, they found a replacement, but their review of the tower came with terrifying news. They noticed the building was leaning a few centimeters to the north. But even after that, they continued working on the skyscraper. They even tried to compensate for the tilt by unevenly pouring concrete at the upper floors. However, that didn't help either. As of 2025, the project still remains unfinished, and there are several lawsuits going on. A lawyer even said in court that the building is shaped like a banana right now. At the end of the day, the tower probably isn't going to collapse, but under these circumstances, selling those pricey units is off the table now. But this isn't the only skyscraper that suffered from poor construction decisions. Halfway across the world, in Thailand, another tower met an even worse fate. This is the State Audit Office in Bangkok. The date is March 28 this year. Construction workers were in the middle of building one of the city's newest high-rises when disaster struck. Over in neighboring Myanmar, the single most powerful earthquake in over 100 years sent shockwaves that were felt as far as China, India and Vietnam. Within seconds, the entire structure gave way. Concrete floors collapsed one after the other, trapping workers under a pile of debris and rubble. 92 people unfortunately lost their lives in the incident. But what exactly happened here? How did an earthquake whose epicenter was more than 1,000 kilometers away manage to completely topple an entire skyscraper? Investigations soon revealed that the earthquake alone wasn't the main reason for the incident. While it was indeed the direct cause of the collapse, experts found that poor construction and substandard materials were largely to blame. Just a few days after the incident, investigators found the steel samples collected from the site were substandard. The samples were eventually traced back to a Thailand-based Chinese company, who already had a track record for substandard materials. One of their factories have even been ordered to close in December 2024. But despite all this, the steel bars still managed to make their way into the project. eventually leading to the catastrophic collapse and the tragic loss of lives. Just 2 months later, another incident in Thailand was linked to the exact same company. The government has already revoked the license of the company involved. The tragedy has now become a grim reminder that in construction, cutting corners doesn't just cost money, it can cost lives as well. While the collapse in Bangkok was due to substandard materials, this one in India was unfortunately a disaster waiting to happen. This is the Gambhira bridge located in Gujarat. It's one of the few vital links that connect central Gujarat to the Saurashtra region. In July this year, a section of the bridge suddenly gave way, sending vehicles plunging straight into the Mahi River below. In mere seconds, what looked like a normal morning commute turned into absolute chaos. Local news reported at least 22 people sadly lost their lives in the collapse. And apparently, this incident could have actually been avoided in the first place. For years, locals had reportedly warned authorities about cracks and visible damage on the structure. The bridge was built nearly 40 years ago, and over time, its concrete deck and steel reinforcements had badly deteriorated. When investigators arrived, they found corroded rebar, weakened joints and decaying concrete. While all of these are normal signs of wear and tear for any bridge, what went absolutely wrong here is that they did nothing about it for decades. Experts believe the collapse began when one of the slabs between two piers failed under stress. Once the joint gave way, the slab detached completely, causing the entire section to collapse into the river. Decades of wear, heavy traffic and poor maintenance had slowly eaten away at the bridge's load-bearing capacity. In other words, the bridge didn't fail overnight, it failed over years of neglect. After the incident, local engineers inspected more than 1,800 bridges across the state. 20 bridges were closed off completely, while more than 100 banned heavy vehicles. Several officials were suspended, and the tragedy reignited calls for stricter safety checks across India. A structure like this is supposed to last for generations. But when you ignore the warning signs, reality has a way of catching up. Moving over to New Zealand, another mega project has been making headlines, though not for the right reason. This is the Seascape Tower in Auckland. If it were ever to be completed, it would become the tallest skyscraper in the entire country, with a height of 187 meters. It was supposed to redefine the city's skyline, a gleaming glass landmark filled with luxury apartments and panoramic views. But today, the tower stands eerily quiet. The main structure itself has already been completed, but the scaffolding and construction cranes remain. So what exactly happened here? When Seascape was first announced, it was expected to be finished by 2021. But even before the first concrete pour, the project already ran into serious engineering and design issues. Back in 2018, the Auckland Council raised red flags over the building's fire safety design, which didn't meet regulations. That forced a redesign and pushed construction back by more than a year. Then came the foundation challenges. Seascape's basement extends 5 stories underground, one of the deepest in New Zealand. But during excavation, inspectors found defects in the structure's diaphragm walls. These are massive reinforced concrete walls that hold back soil and water pressure around the foundation. The problem was with the concrete itself. A director described it by saying parts of the diaphragm walls were weak or hollow. These problems required additional stabilization work and design changes, which drove up the costs and delayed the project even further. By the time the tower finally topped out in 2024, costs had already ballooned. And that's when things went from bad to worse. The project's main contractor, China Construction New Zealand, claimed that the developer owed them over $30 million. Unable to keep funding the project, the contractor halted construction and ordered all workers to pack up and leave the site. But despite all this, there's actually some good news for once. After more than a year of uncertainty, the project has finally found a new lead contractor. It's still unclear exactly when the tower will be completed, but if all goes to plan, there is still hope that this project will be finished in the future. But while one project looks like it can get back on track, another one in neighboring Australia might have to be completely torn down and replaced. This is the Paradise Dam in Queensland. When it was first built back in 2005, it was supposed to be one of the region's most important water reservoirs. But the dam was significantly damaged in 2013 after a major flood. The dam was built using roller compacted concrete, a faster and cheaper method of construction where layers of concrete are stacked and compressed one on top of another. It's a tried and tested method that's been used in many other dams all around the world. So what seems to be the problem here? After the dam was damaged back in 2013, they found out that the layers of RCC didn't bond together properly. The reason was in the concrete mix itself. It was low in cement, high in clay and far more porous than it should have been. In some sections, the material was riddled with voids and cracks that allowed water to seep in. Over time, this began eroding the internal structure, further weakening the wall. This meant that these layers could slide under stress or heavy load. Think of the dam as one giant layered cake, except instead of frosting holding everything together, these layers were barely sticking at all. And in the event of another major flood, when millions of tons of water are pushing against the wall, those joints become potential points of weakness. There was a real risk that the dam could partially collapse. That's when the government made the emergency decision in 2019 to lower the dam's water level to just 42% of its total capacity. Doing so reduced the water pressure on the wall. Initially, the plan was to raise it back up once repairs were done, but as more testing was carried out, it became clear that the damage went far deeper than anyone thought. And so, in 2024, the dam's operator came to a tough conclusion. Paradise Dam couldn't be saved. The safest option was now to build an entirely new dam from scratch and demolish the old one. This time using modern concrete standards, better bonding methods and stricter quality control. It's an expensive fix, one that costs $4.4 billion, but it seems to be a necessary one. The new dam will be built just 90 meters downstream from the existing one. As of October 2025, preliminary work has already begun on the new dam. At the end of the day, all these mega projects remind us of one simple truth. In construction, there really are no shortcuts. Every bolt, every weld, and every layer of concrete, they all matter. Because when you're building on this scale, even the smallest oversight can snowball into disaster. And that's it for today's video. This is already part 7 of our mistake series, so if you want to see another one, let us know in the comments down below. Also, feel free to propose a project. Thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one.